Today, I'm really excited to have Venkat Sakamuri on the podcast. Venkat is this co-founder of Stay Flexi, a modern-day operating system for hotel and vacation rentals. Stay Flexi has now been introduced to over 30,000 properties across 15 different countries and has been through Y Combinator. It was great to have Venkat on the podcast to talk about some of the ways that Stay Flexi identified these problems and has grown to the scale that they've grown to, as well as give us insights into building product and what the future looks like for Stay Flexi. So, with that said, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Building Blocks podcast. I'm super excited to have Venkat on the podcast. Venkat, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot, Devik. I'm excited to share my thoughts here.
Yeah, super excited to have your thoughts as well. And before we get into some of the work you're doing at Stay Flexi, I always
Mhm.
start by asking guests, what brought them into this world because, everybody has a pretty unique journey into how they finally
Mhm.
get into startups, especially. So, you were working at Oracle. I know that on core database technology. So, what brought you from working on at Oracle to the world of hospitality tech? Two worlds that you wouldn't necessarily see together.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I mean, whenever I shared the story of my startup, and people would be like, "Wow, wow, it's completely two unrelated things." Yeah, I was a C programmer at Oracle. Has nothing to do with the travel or hospitality, anything. But my
Mm-hmm.
personal experiences of wherever I go, and every single time I check into the hotel, and the frustrating experiences, and personally, my family is into hospitality, so I know how things should be. So, and then I decided that, okay, this is the time for me to fundamentally disrupt something in this space. I see it, what I can disrupt. And with my background of working in hardcore tech, I felt like this hardcore tech is needed in the hospitality segment. So I could draw some lines, and that eventually became Stayflexi. So we are really onto something big to disrupt in this space we can talk about here.
Yeah. So walk me through that a little bit. So like so you're working at Oracle,
Yeah,
and then I know you've had these frustrations as you're mentioning. Was there like
yeah.
a moment like
I,
one hotel
I'll
that really just
No,
got you over
I'll
the
give you a
edge? Or
concrete example, right? I'll give you a very concrete story, the story
yeah.
that got us into Y Combinator.
Okay.
I mean, you might have run into the same scenario whenever you travel and try to check in a hotel, right? So my flight typically lands early in the morning at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And you go and try to check in. The front desk people at the hotel would let you wait until 2 p.m. They would not give you the room, although they have the
Mm-hmm.
rooms available. And once it was a frustrating experience. I had a family who traveled from India to US. I took them on a trip, and then we went to the hotel, which is close to the airport, and we came little early. They would not give us a room. It's a really five-star property actually. I told them, hey, I am
Right.
even to pay a little extra. They were like, no, your check-in is at 2 p.m. It was not hospitable. The hospitality
Right.
is supposed to, you should be accommodative, or you should at least tell them where you can stay, or I can give you a temporary something where I can park your luggage. So that was the moment where I was like super frustrated, like, guys, you have the rooms, you should
Yeah.
know how to upsell those rooms. And personally, my family also runs the hotels. You
Right.
have to be accommodative. So when I dig down that problem deeper, it's the people working at the front desk, they are ready to help, but the systems and the processes are stuck such a way that you cannot let people to come before 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
That is so stupid. I mean, that is a technology problem, and that was happening for everyone I speak to. Right? I started talking about this thing to the friends. They resonated with the problem, and that's the moment where I realized that, okay, this is not just me. Of course, I'm frustrated. And there are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people like me who are frustrated. It's not just about the check-in experience, a lot of things in the hotel. So I decided that we fundamentally need to change that. So yeah, that was a triggering thing.
I mean, I definitely relate to that as someone who's traveled a bunch, especially in the last 2 or 3 years. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I think, of course, things are changing a little bit. But I know in the past, one of the big tenets with Airbnb and why it became popular was because some people felt like, oh, the hosts are more gracious a lot of times than some of the hotels they're staying at, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
you would think it'd be the opposite when you're talking about an organization with
Yeah.
whose main goal is hospitality. Why is
Yeah.
some random person
They're
hosting
running
you
like
better than
jails.
that?
The worst thing is they're running like jails. In the jails, you have like clock in, clock out of certain timings. I mean, why the hell the hotels are running that way? You're
Yeah.
supposed to let people come in and leave their own timings and then be accommodative of that. So, yeah, that's a broader picture. And
Okay.
then, yeah.
Okay, okay, awesome. Well, just to give the audience a little context, and let's just dive into Stay Flexi, right? Because I think you set
Hmm.
the context up pretty well here. So,
Hmm.
Stay Flexi is a modern operating system for hotels and vacation rentals, which is fundamentally changing how short-term rentals are operated, marketed, and sold. You guys have over 30,000 hotel and vacation rental units across 15 countries that are using Stay Flexi, which is an insane number. So I'm sure a lot of people in the audience unknowingly might have already benefited from Stay Flexi, and if not, at
Yeah.
least in the future, will definitely. So I think it's really interesting when you build up the platform, and of course, there's a lot of questions I could get into, but I want to start with first. You you like hotels are pretty broad, right? And so
Yeah.
you have hotels, you have vacation rentals, the scope of them are very broad. Like you have five-star properties, motels. So like,
Right.
how do you and you have one platform for that. So how do you balance all those different needs from different sectors of the hotel industry? Because it's not easy to consolidate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why we picked the independent segment first to
Mhm.
target. These
Okay.
are independently operated by the owners. Maybe a owner would be operating two or three properties in a different star category. Again, it need not to be just a motel. It can be three-star or four-star, but they operate it. They can take the decisions. So that is around 35 to 40% of the hotels in the US. That itself
Mhm.
it's not a niche actually. It's a big segment altogether. So at the moment, we're not going behind Marriott's and Hilton's. We know that they are not going to change themselves overnight. But down the line, it will happen for sure. Once they feel the pressure of this independent hotels are running much better than them, then that definitely they'll change the process. So our goal at the moment is empower the independent hotels. And give them the most sophisticated and advanced technology, which is fairly automated. If you look at our problem, the problem what I faced is their technology, whatever they're using is very manual, fragmented, not automated. That is the
Mhm.
reason why these people were not able to service the guests. So we took that problem. Why can't we just automate all these things? Think about like very good analogy is like Tesla of the cars, right? So you have this completely automated mode, semi-automated mode, and manual mode. So we are
Mhm.
providing a technology like that where hotels can run completely automated way. So the system does the check-ins, allocates the rooms by themselves. I can go into the details, but it's like we are empowering the independent hotels who don't have that much capability of going behind this invest in millions of dollars in advanced technologies.
Yeah.
So, and then from there we go up the ladder.
Yeah, yeah, and I know somebody who's been through YC. They have this saying, which is "find the people with the hair on fire problem," right? And I
Yeah.
think, especially, I think it makes sense in terms of prioritization. I would imagine, and of course, I guess you could back it up here, is that
Yeah.
those small independent chains are probably the most like they had the most critical need because the
Right.
Hiltons and Marriott probably have a team at least that are trying to make some type of solution. It's probably not
Right.
great. Your Stay Flexi is probably far better than that, but those independents have nothing, right? So I think that
Right.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's our ambition for now at least, and down the line we can grow up the ladder. Yeah.
And I think in general, right? There's a lot of different hospitality tech that's been popping up.
Yeah.
Of course, Airbnb I think is probably one of the biggest examples that people know about. But
Hmm.
throughout, whether it's the experience when you're in the hotel, like I know there's some startups that are working on, doing AirPlay for the hotel rooms because that's a big
Hmm.
problem. People are like, why are my
Hmm.
hotel TVs behind? Um, there's a couple different startups, but you know in this space particular, what do you think set Stay Flexi apart, or how do you guys think that compared to your competitors, you have
Yeah.
something very unique?
Yeah, I mean fundamentals, right? So there's a lot of noise, and people are building a lot of point solutions, like addressing one problem at a time. So ultimately, if you look back in this hotel space, there are only like three dominant players. One is the brands, like
Hmm.
Hilton's and Marriott's. The others are online travel agencies like Expedia, Booking.com, who gets the bookings to the hotels. And third is property management systems. These are like central pieces of the entire tech stack, right? These three are the major technology pieces. Brands is not a technology, but it's just that the brand value. But
Yeah.
coming to the technologies, online travel agencies and property management systems. So why these other lot of things popping up? Because these property management systems are stuck. These are very old systems out there in the market. So since they couldn't evolve, they are not innovating. There are a lot of other pieces coming around them. It can be like guest interaction system, or it can be upselling system, it a payments processing system. But if you look at it, all those things should be part of the PMS.
Yeah.
because PMSs should be evolving. That is a central piece of it. So we took a stand of it. Like think about we being a rippling of hospitality. Rippling, I don't know if you know about the rippling. It's
Yeah.
a payroll and it's like all in one system, right? They think that it should be in single system, the payroll and the pretty much everything, how you manage the IT and all that. So we believe the same way. There's a lot of noise, like small things coming up in the market, but ultimately, if you see, the PMS systems will eat them up. It will be
Right.
down the line three or four dominant PMS systems, depending on the geography, and it may take some time for them, but over a period of time, you see the huge market share there. It is PMS systems, and then it is OTS. That's it. Everything
Yeah.
else will be sucked up by either them or these. So that's our take on this thing. Yeah.
Right. Right. That makes sense. And of course, like either you can consolidate different companies into your PMS system, or you can make an interface so companies can interact with your system. But either way,
Yeah,
your system sort of in the center there, right?
yeah. And so we decided to build a lot of modules by ourselves. Think about us being
Hmm.
like a Costco. We have an aisles where we can offer other products as integrations. I mean, but we have our own signature product.
Yeah.
If so, but ultimately we are the package, one package for the hoteliers. It's completely built out. So yeah, they don't have to worry about too many integrations. They're just dealing with one product, one platform. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. And so if we dive into a little bit of one of the tools you recently launched, I know you recently
Mm-hmm.
launched Empower, and
Mm-hmm.
to give context to the audience, so Empower is a new tool from Stay Flexi that provides market intelligence to small and mid-tier hotels.
Wow.
It offers three key features, which are city demand trends, price predictions, and competitor analysis.
Right.
So definitely pretty comprehensive there, and I think you sort of nailed at least how how these hotels can know about the market. So one of the things I do in my startup, and I think is very important, is ruthless prioritization. Like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you do first? Because there's a lot of stuff you can build, right? So, how
Right.
did you know that this was the right time to make this product, and what was
Mm-hmm.
sort of the inspiration there?
Right. I'll give you a little bit background about why Empower tool. Again, if you step back about this empowering the independence, I use the word empowering the independence. What
Right.
exactly it is? It's not just about giving them the software. It is about giving the intelligence to them. This intelligence and data is with the big brands like Hyatt's and Marriott's and all that because they have all these data points. But if you're
Yeah.
operating independent hotel, you know only about your hotel. You don't know about anything else. So who is going to give you? That's where a lot of independent hoteliers are falling in prey for the brands and they're giving their properties to the brands and leaving 30-40% of their top of the line revenue, right? So
Yeah.
that's where we say that, oh, look, you can still operate by yourself. All you need is this intelligence. We're decentralizing that. Not only the top brands, you can have access to this data and intelligence. And at the same time, we are in this, I don't want to use this AI word, buzzword. The people who are actually building the AI don't use the AI word. So, um, but the fundamentals of that is the data, right? I mean, I came from
Yeah.
the data
Yeah.
background, so you
Hmm.
can correlate that as well. So I know the power of the data. So ultimately, that is what differentiates your product versus the rest on the market, and how intelligent it is, how
Yeah.
automated it is. And so we have a long path on, like, again, like helping the hoteliers so that they can focus on the guest. Rest, everything can be automated. The one of the theories for Empower tool down the line is like it can automatically change your prices by looking at competitors, by looking at your city where you are operating, by
Right.
looking at the real time flight data. So then think about that. That is the most of the time this independent hoteliers spend time on, like how can I get my yield, how can I sell my rooms,
Yeah.
and that is stress we are eventually taking away from them by introducing these intelligent features. So yeah, at this point we are making like these independent hotels compete with the brands with all these powerful weapons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's a motivation. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense, right? And I think, yeah, I mean, this is stuff that the big hotels have teams of many people working on.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, the independent hotels just usually it's a small business, like you have 5 or 10 people maybe running the hotel,
Right.
so they don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do that. So I
Yeah.
think what's really interesting there as a centralized platform is the data is really the rocket fuel to do that, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
you guys can have access to that and provide them the insights that they can't necessarily get
Right.
independently, which can be very interesting, because I think even for if you look at the end result for consumers, or or for people listening to this podcast who aren't necessarily in hospitality tech, what that means is that, depend if you go to a place in the low season, you'll actually see that reflected on the prices.
Right.
And so that can be very useful, not only for the hotels but for other
Yep.
people as well.
Yeah.
So the demand actually meets supply.
Yeah, I mean, we are really good in uniquely sourcing the data from our
Hmm.
sources, mostly from the Google, and coming from the tech background again, dealing with all this data intelligence and data mining and all that, and that's another big differentiator of Stayflexi versus other PMS platforms. The people who are running
Hmm.
them, they're not from the tech background; they are from hotel operations. They just build systems where you put the data in, it becomes the data. There is nothing intelligence about it. So
Right.
that's another biggest differentiator in Stay Flexi. Yeah. So
Okay. Okay. I know you mentioned in the middle there that you don't like to mention AI. I think what's really interesting actually is I share a very similar sentiment as just a little bit of a tangent where I think I think the people who have to rely on AI as a word to sell the future are missing the point. The whole point is using AI as a tool to create immense value, and that
yeah,
value should be your selling point. So it's
yeah.
great to sort of have that, because you could very easily say empowers an AI tool that does this as this because
No,
AI
we
is
deliberately
there in the
didn't
background.
use AI anywhere.
Yeah,
Although the reporter asked us, like, hey, can I mention blah, 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 blah? We told, like, I mean, all these things doesn't matter. The hotel should
yeah,
understand that we help them. How we
yeah,
do it, no one needs to know, right? So,
yep.
yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So I mean, I do commend that a lot. And so, yeah, talking about Stay Flexi's structure in general. So you've broken
Hmm.
down the platform into four different
Hmm.
hubs, right? You
Hmm.
have operations, you have sales, you have guest, and payment.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Well, I mean, it compromises, I guess, the different ways. But of course, there's a lot of ways you can structure out your platform. So I was
Right.
just wondering, like, when it came from the ground level, how did you guys end up deciding on these four verticals?
Yeah.
And do you feel like it's been a comprehensive overview of the hotel
Yeah.
experience for the most part?
Yeah, I mean, put if you put ourselves in a hotelier shoe,
Hmm.
all they care about like what's my sales and marketing strategies, how am I running my operations of the hotel, and what am I doing with the payments, and how am I taking care of the guest. If you talk to
Hmm.
any hotelier, their main concerns are these four areas. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah,
You when you are operating a platform, you have to match with your offerings with what they think.
yeah,
If it has to hit it cannot be technical. You cannot be just telling them that I'm blah blah blah, I have all these products, but they cannot map those products into what they actually want.
yeah,
So the hubs are naturally created and are also inspired by HubSpot and few other CRM platforms. So that when someone lands on the website, they quickly understands, okay, so these guys have something for sales and marketing, and and they can understand all the terminologies there easily once they look at that hub. Operations is like once, so it's all based on guest journey, right? So when
hmm,
guests searches your property, they just Google search and then finds one of the channels like Expedia or Airbnb or Booking.com, makes a booking, then comes to the property. That part is sales and marketing, and then comes to the property, checks in, and then does the services and all that housekeeping. That's the operations aspect of it, and then
yeah,
payments and everything. So this is logically bifurcated based on the guest journey. Again, like we focus. The other thing I forgot to mention, this is a guest centric PMS system, which means that even if hotelier don't interact with the system, our system has a capability to completely automate the guest journey. So they can check in
right.
by themselves, they can do everything by themselves, so they can get a room by themselves. So it's we have that mode actually. So um, it's easy to explain and people can digest really quick in this hubs categorization. Yeah,
I mean, that's music to my ears because I know waiting at check-in for an hour usually, or at least 15 minutes, is always a pain, right? So I
yeah,
think just being able to automate it all is definitely a huge benefit
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's awesome. Okay. And like if I dial it back now, if I bring it back to the beginning, right? So of course, as you've been building the platform, you start iterating on it, and you start figuring out the best way of structuring it out. But like, you left Oracle, and you started, or what's the next step, right? Like you decided, okay, I'm going to build this. Did
Yeah.
you just apply to YC and go from there, or how did that work?
No, interesting story, man. I mean, I didn't tell this interesting story to you off the record.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether I can say this, but Voice guys, we were still at Oracle when we were hustling on this thing,
Okay.
right? After we got into Voice, we left Oracle. So that's an
Mhm.
interesting story. So, um, yeah, I mean, Voice helped us a lot in
Yeah.
the transition. We were on H-1B visas, immigrant visas. So
Nice.
so typically people on H-1B visas, they don't take risk of starting something because it's a job. If they lose a job, they have 2 months period. They need to either
Yeah.
go back to where they came from or find another job, right? So
Yeah.
we took a call like, okay, Stay Flexi will be our job. So let's take the shot, and we are all married. And there is always that friction of like whether your spouses are okay with this move and all that. So yes, there was a tension period, but
Yeah.
YC actually helped us a lot. They said that this is how the companies get started in Silicon Valley. And the fact that you guys are ready to lose your job being on H1 actually impressed us. So we are happy to give you a lawyer who can work with you and transition your status and whatnot. So that was super good. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So that makes sense. And so if we go into scaling and growth, right? So
Hmm.
you've grown now to 30,000 units. But of course, one of the things I face most is like how do you get that initial traction and how do you start building on it? And I think
Hmm.
after that starts snowballing. But when you
Hmm.
when you think about how when you guys started, how like what was the process there? How did you get your first couple customers, and then how did you
Yeah.
leverage that into a snowball effect?
Yeah, dude, we built out the system in Palo Alto Blue Bottle Coffee Shop. That's my favorite one. Most of the system, myself and my co-founders, we built out there.
Yeah.
We used to go around at El Camino Real, the motels basically owned by Gujaratis, knock their
Yeah.
door, and then show them the UI sketches, not even the system. Show them the UI, and then ask them to show what system they are using, and we just compare them, just showing the UI. Look how
Right.
modern this is, and you are working on very outdated systems. And then if they get impressed that, oh, this looks really cool, and then we don't even have a product, we just tell them that we do all these things. And if this
Yeah.
guy gets impressed, we come back and quickly implement it, and then go on. So that's the initial sales on El Camino Real. We have few properties. That's just before the
Right.
COVID, right?
Yeah.
Around 2019, October, November, December timeline. So after that COVID hit, then we opened the shop in India. So then India thing grew naturally. So yeah, India opening is a pretty good. We had a lot of success here. We kept growing a lot of units in India. So that was because of the COVID. We moved from that US thing to India, and then now
Yeah.
we are back to US again. So we are doing sales in both India and US. These are our primary markets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think people who aren't in India realize how big hospitality is in India. It's a massive industry.
It's growing. It's growing. Yeah.
It's growing and yeah, it's just it's absolutely humongous. And
Yeah. We
if you've
have a
ever
state. We have
sorry, go
state
ahead.
departments in India running on Stay Flexi, like Maharashtra State Department running on Stay Flexi, the Tamil Nadu State Tourism Board. So we really got like really big customers. We never thought that we would achieve them at this early stage, but somehow we cracked into it. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. And I mean, like you mentioned this, right? But the hospitality industry in general, or every industry, but especially the hospitality industry, was highly affected during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it seems like you guys still navigated that challenging period. Like how,
Yeah.
like what was sort of the challenges you guys had to go through there, and then how did you navigate through them?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like really relieved and happy. I mean, not because of it's a COVID. We had read pre-seed. We definitely needed some time to build out what we are envisioning. That COVID, that first few months gave us that bandwidth of seriously focus on something, sit in one place, and then start building out.
Mhm.
It's like we almost kind of locked in a place, right? So we couldn't do
Yeah,
anything. We are super focused on the product. Iterated very quickly, and India first wave was not that bad. India first wave
right,
was like almost everything was open. We were just building out and testing in India market very rapidly, so that actually helped us to. I mean, the timeline of building something what we have today typically takes like 5 to 10 years. I mean, there are other
hmm,
guys who try to build something in the vast system. They're still building it. It's not that easy. Since we came from a tech background, we're hyper focused on building it. We in 6 months we could roll it out, and people were surprised actually.
hmm,
So yeah, so yeah, I mean, in a way, it helped for us to be
hmm.
hyper focused. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And I know you mentioned so you came from a tech background, right? And
Hmm.
there's always this question about for especially from engineering, where it's like, oh, but my background's technical. I don't know if I can get into sales and marketing or running a
Mm-hmm.
company.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had a pretty technical role actually at Oracle, and of course you transition now into leading this company. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, how did you end up taking that challenge, and what were some of the growing pains, and
Yeah.
more importantly than that, like what's some of the advice that you have for people who are in that same position?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in one thing: the product. The product should speak for itself. It should
Hmm.
differentiate as much as it can. It can. If the product is just slightly better, or 5%, 10% better than market alternatives, then you have to invest a lot in marketing and sales to beat
Yep.
them, to beat their
Hmm.
marketing in order to push the sales. So the more the difference you have the product with the market alternatives, you have to spend less in the sales and marketing. I clearly believe in this philosophy, and of
Right.
course adopted from the Steve Jobs philosophy also. So I mean, initial days I was worried about marketing and sales. We burn a lot of ads, and it's not about that. Ultimately, it's the product. So just focus on the initial customers, let them be very happy, and then naturally your product will be referred by them, and then you pick on the channel where they're referring, how they're referring, and then you can double down on the channel either with the collaborations and whatnot. So that actually worked out for us. We have a lot of, even today, a lot of people refer our product to their other the fellow hoteliers, and this entire hotel network is very well connected. It's not
Right.
like the entire hotel industry is, if you just get the first top 10% of the people who influence others, then you're done.
Hmm.
So we identified unique channels for sales and marketing. So we doubled down on that. But we believe in the product first. If it is not sellable, if the salespeople are not happy selling it, then we don't push salespeople on that.
Yeah.
I would say this is one of the best companies to work in the sales department, because we never push them to achieve something which they cannot achieve.
Right.
So we feel little bad that these guys have to work hard on something that they cannot sell. So we always take their feedback, improve the product, rather than
Yeah.
pushing them to do something which they can't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's super interesting, and one of the I guess one of the questions I have there, right, is you essentially you like, you took a product led approach where you really focus on the product, and then you brought that to sales and marketing. But a lot of people, I feel like, start to cubbyhole themselves in a certain domain where they're like, oh, I don't know anything about sales and marketing. I only know how to build products. So like, how did you step out of that, right? How did you, make determinations in terms of the way sales and marketing should happen at the company?
Yeah.
And feel confident with those decisions that you guys had to make there.
Yeah, I mean, it's about So when you're in a customer conversation, so initial my conversations, I used to get excited about what we are doing, the innovation. That naturally the other person will feel it. Okay, this guy
Yeah.
has something. Let me sit and listen. Right?
Right.
If you're lethargic and then show them in your geeky tone that, hey, I built something, are you interested? No, I mean, you have to be like electrified and excited about something. That
Yeah.
is the only quality for any first time founder. You have to I mean, not just with the customers, right? You need to build a team. You should be first excited about that energy, and then that energy should distribute. So I would say it's just about being very very positive about what you're doing,
Yeah.
and some of that positiveness will definitely get to some customers because they believe in you. Ultimately, it's like people believe in people, right? So
Right.
they see that you are onto something, and then once you get a chance, you prove them. It's not like once you convert the customer, you should not immediately move on to something else, ignoring that guy. You have to closely work with them, take them as part of your ecosystem, so take their feedback.
Right.
I mean, I also believe in, like, you should not get stuck with like customer feedback all the time. You're inventing something, which they don't know, so you have to stay at the level where what to take from them, what not to take. So that's another important thing. Yeah, preaching is important,
Interesting.
I would say. You
Huh?
have to be a better guru or preacher in pushing something.
Yeah.
So the takeaways are spiritual leaders, right? They talk, I mean, anything and everything, but convince the people who are listening to them. So a lot of takeaways from them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny because in my own life, right, I have conversations with people, and I'm a pretty passionate guy. Like, I'm pretty social and everything too. So whenever I had a conversation with them, by the end of it, they're like, "Oh, this is really cool. Like, it's awesome that things are going that well and whatever." And like, they always take away that things are going a lot better than they are, and there's no concrete reason for that, other than just me being super excited about the work I'm doing,
Yeah.
and being pretty jovial about it. So I think people really like, of course, there's different factors like your traction and all these technical factors you can talk about, like how your
Yeah,
product is and everything. But one of the most underrated aspects is just as a founder, how much do you care and how
yeah,
much is that being delivered to the other person? Because that
yeah.
can go a very, very long way. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that applies to hiring, that applies to anything, whatever you're doing, right? So, but fundamentally, the one thing I tell to my salespeople is like, how are you guys giving your demos? I
Hmm.
don't worry about whether they're converting or not. If you're electrified, if you engage the other person, listen to what you're saying. If you don't vote them in the demos, then you're fine. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. Well, Venkat, this has been an amazing conversation, and I know you have a lot of great work to do, so I'm not going to keep you for too much longer. I just have two questions before I let you go. The first one is there a book that you recommend us checking out or reading?
This could be mainstream. I love Steve Jobs' biography.
Right.
Man, that's amazing. I read it like 10 times. I would still read it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one of my favorites too. I grew up reading that, so I definitely relate on that one. And no matter how mainstream it is, it's a really good book. So if you
Yeah.
haven't read it, I definitely would recommend it as well.
Yeah, there is
Uh,
another book, Shoe Dog, but yeah, that's mainstream again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what? That's been on my shelf, but I have not gotten around to reading it yet. But hopefully, very soon, I can do that.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, the next question I have, the last question I have, is just what are the next steps for you and Stay Flexi? What can we look forward to?
My goal is to just dream about it and then make some of those dreams an executable plan,
Yeah,
and just I mean, fundamentally, I feel like every single day I'm making a step closer to the fundamental disruption in the space. I see it. Whatever I
hmm,
see it, my job is to make sure that the entire team sees it as well along with me, so they're
yeah,
equally excited. So yeah, it's a team effort at the end of the day. But one person is leading with the vision and the dream. I should never get bored. So my goal is to basically like have that energy, burning coal, so that the entire team follows it to achieve. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Venkat, for coming onto the podcast, and for everyone listening who is tuning in. And until the next one, everyone, thank you so much.